Top 10 near misses with nuclear weapons. Since 1945, there has not been one military use of a nuclear weapon. For the most part, the concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, kept the nuclear powers in check. However, that doesn't mean that the world has been safe during this time. On the contrary, the age of the atom bomb has arguably been the most dangerous period in human history. The number of near misses since its invention is disquieting, to put it mildly. 10. 2 nukes were accidentally dropped on North Carolina. North Carolina narrowly avoided disaster on January 24, 1961. A B52 bomber carrying 2 Mark 39 nuclear bombs was flying over the state when it experienced a massive fuel leak in its right wing. This worsened to the point that the wing broke off and sent the aircraft plummeting to the ground. Only 5 of the 8-man crew were able to parachute to safety. During this free fall, the 2 bombs were released. The arming sequence of one of the bombs was activated as it fell and was ready to detonate upon impact. The only reason it didn't was because of a single low-voltage safety switch. Due to the mid-air accident, the other 3 remaining safety mechanisms had failed. 9. 1 vote prevented a war. The Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the most nerve-wracking standoffs of the Cold War. America had responded with a naval blockade to the Soviet Union placing nuclear missiles in Cuba, and war seemed inevitable. On October 27, 1962, when tensions were at their highest, U.S. warships released depth charges in order to get a Soviet submarine to surface. The submarine was too deep to communicate with anyone above and believed that all-out war had begun. 2 commanders ordered that a tactical nuclear torpedo be fired at the enemy fleet, which would have actually started a nuclear war. However, unanimous approval from all senior officers on board was needed, and the remaining commander, Vasily Arkhipov, refused to authorize the launch. 8. Radioactive dust over Spain. In the skies over Spain on January 17, 1966, a B-52 bomber was undertaking regular mid-air refuel during its aerial patrol. Unfortunately, the bomber came in too fast and hit the refueling plane. Both aircraft were covered in fuel and an explosion occurred. 3 of the bomber crew and all 4 of the refueling crew died. The 2 planes broke apart and debris was scattered across the Spanish coastline, including 4 Mark 28 hydrogen bombs. One of the devices landed in the sea with its parachute deployed. The 3 other bombs crash-landed near the small town of Palomares. While there were no nuclear detonations, the standard explosives in 2 of the weapons went off, spreading plutonium particles across approximately 650 acres. The U.S. military had to remove 1,400 tons of topsoil that had been contaminated with radioactive dust and spent 3 months searching for the bomb that fell into the ocean. 7. The training tape incident. Zbigniew Brzezinski, the national security advisor of the Carter administration and father of MSNBC's Morning Joe host Mika Brzezinski, received a frantic phone call on the night of November 9, 1979. He was told that the Soviet Union had launched 250 nuclear missiles at America. This warning was followed by another call informing him there was in fact 2,200 ICBMs on their way, more than enough to wipe out the United States and the world several times over. Brzezinski was meant to contact President Carter and authorize a counterattack, but he held off as he wanted complete verification that they were really at war. Fortunately, a third call came through to tell Brzezinski that no other detection systems had picked up any incoming threats. It was a false alarm. 6. Socket nearly caused a nuclear explosion in Arkansas. Even the most minor accidents can create the right conditions for catastrophe. This is what happened at a nuclear base in Damascus, Arkansas in September 1980. Missile technician Dave Powell was doing routine maintenance on a nuclear missile when he accidentally dropped the socket from the socket wrench he was using. It fell 20 meters and punctured the side of the weapon, causing pressurized rocket fuel to seep out. This buildup of highly flammable gas led to an explosion that physically ejected the warhead out of the silo and into a nearby field. While total disaster was narrowly avoided, 1 man, unfortunately, died in the blast. Alongside the initial mistake that caused the leak, it was reported afterward that senior staff made poor decisions that led to the situation getting worse. 5. One man saved the world in 1983. Most people have likely never heard of Stanislav Petrov, but this man prevented a full-scale nuclear war. On September 26, 1983, Lieutenant Colonel Petrov was alerted by an early warning system that 5 nuclear missiles had been launched at the Soviet Union by the United States. Petrov's next required course of action was to immediately raise the alarm to his superiors, who would have almost certainly ordered for Soviet ICBMs to be launched in retaliation. Moreover, at that time relations between the two superpowers were strained, so it was not unreasonable for Petrov to assume that the USSR really was being fired upon. However, the fact that the system was only registering a small number of warheads made him hesitant. He reasoned that if America was really attacking, they would fire all of their missiles, not just 5. 4. An underwater explosion. In 1986, the USSR was still dealing figuratively and literally with the fallout from the Chernobyl disaster. That same year there was another nuclear incident, this time with a Soviet submarine in Bermuda. On October 3, a missile tube exploded in a K-219 vessel after one of the rockets had a fuel leak. This caused a missile with warheads attached to be pushed into the ocean. The crew was able to put out the fire and shut down the reactor, but the submarine was badly damaged. A Soviet commercial freighter was deployed to tow it back to base, but this salvage mission failed, and the order was given to abandon ship. The vessel sank to the ocean floor, roughly 18,000 feet, with 16 nuclear-armed missiles on board. 5 crewmen died in the accident, and the Soviet leadership opened an investigation, going as far as to accuse the crew members of sabotage. Nothing came of these suspicions, and the case was dropped the following year. 3. The Cold War ending didn't stop misunderstandings. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the world breathed a sigh of relief as the threat of nuclear conflict seemed to disappear. However, this sense of security was badly rattled in January 1995. When Norwegian scientists launched a rocket carrying a weather satellite, they didn't realize that it would appear on the radar of a Russian military facility. The radar signal from the rocket was identical to that of a U.S. nuclear missile and prompted the officers to alert their superiors that the Americans were carrying out a nuclear first strike. President Boris Yeltsin was informed and handed the dreaded nuclear briefcase. This device allowed him to communicate with his military commanders and ultimately decide if they should fire their own missiles. It's reported Yeltsin was skeptical of the alarm, as he believed the U.S. wouldn't start a war out of the blue. After waiting 20 very long minutes, the radar operators saw that the suspected missile was traveling out towards the ocean and wasn't a threat. 2. Misplaced missiles. In August 2007, at an Air Force base in North Dakota, 6 nuclear-armed cruise missiles were removed from their bunker, fitted to a B52 Bomber, and flown to a base in Louisiana. This had not been authorized and was a massive breach of strict security procedures. At multiple points in this journey, there were opportunities to catch the error, but no one noticed. The result was 6 nuclear weapons went missing for 36 hours. Worse still, these 6 warheads were left unguarded for several hours on the runway at the Louisiana facility. This caused a scandal in the national press and led to claims that the U.S. military was becoming distracted from one of its most important duties, securing nuclear bombs. 1. 2 nuclear subs collide. The idea of a collision between submarines beneath the ocean is almost comical. Yet these vessels are actually very difficult to detect even with advanced technologies. This was the case in early 2009 when 2 nuclear submarines, the French Le Triomphant and British Vanguard, crashed into each other in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Each vessel was carrying nuclear warheads. Thankfully, both submarines were traveling at low speed, so the impact didn't cause enough damage to cripple the ships. Additionally, there were no serious injuries reported on either crew. Both defense ministries reassured the public that there was no chance of the warheads accidentally being detonated. Still, The idea of armed nuclear weapons lying in the middle of the ocean unclaimed and unmonitored is cause for concern. Moreover, the real risk that was pointed out was the nuclear engines of the submarines. If there had been enough damage to pierce through the containment barriers, then radiation could have leaked out from the reactors.